Yes, I've visited so many in Kenya, but I haven't visited that one. But I know in Kiambu, Athi River, Konza Technopolis, Silicon Savannah, and so many others. If I have not mentioned you individually, you will forgive me, but I would like to observe all the protocol. Colleagues from Kufuza, members of the press present, ladies and gentlemen. As you may recall, this history of industrialization starts way back, even before the NRM government came to power. In July of 1984, our president, then chairman of the NRM, authored the 10-point program. Point number 5 is particularly instructive to us. Building an independent, integrated, and self-sustaining economy to eliminate the root causes of poverty and underdevelopment in Uganda. This was intended, and still is intended, to stop the hemorrhage of African resources in general, and Ugandan resources in particular, to the outside world, and extract ourselves from an unfortunate situation, an extractive imperialism situation, which we continue to fight today. Our work as free zones is in that regard. Our work is to establish, develop, manage, market, maintain, supervise, and control free zones in Uganda, and to also advise the government on all other related matters. And these related matters encompass the entire sphere of export development. Value addition is what Africa needs and must do. We are plagued with perennial fiscal and balance of payments deficits, and we need to address those. Chairman, when we are walking around, you mentioned the volume of exports, rather imports, that we are having, now about 10.5 billion US dollars. But how much are we exporting? That should be a question to answer by all of us. And we all know that no country can ever exit underdevelopment, exit poverty without export development. It has never happened, and it will never happen. We know the path, and we need to take that path. Sometime back, there was a document called the Washington Consensus, which relied majorly on David Ricardo's theory of economics, which we now call neoliberalism, that government has no business in doing business. I disagree. Government has business in doing business. That economics has failed Africa and has failed Uganda, and I'm happy that Uganda is now waking up, because this is an asset, conceptualized, developed, rather designed, developed, and fully funded by Uganda. There's no single coin here from any external source. This is taxpayers' money. China abandoned neoliberalism about 50 years ago. And today, China is making 60% of the world's steel and 30% of the world's machines. So we have something to learn from that. As a country, Uganda, we are punching below our weight in terms of global trade. Our population composition accounts for 0.6% of the world population. But our share of global trade is 0.01%. 17%. That's a huge inequality that we are experiencing. So there's a lot of headroom, and I think we need to move that direction. This government investment is a demonstration that government is concerned and is addressing these issues. This government investment is a prototype. When we were moving around, I saw, I had people say, it is very small. Actually, Ambassador also said, where would the containers be? It's a prototype. It is the first public free zone in Uganda. Those from Kenya, first public free zone being constructed in Uganda. Now, when the Kenyans hear me saying this, I know their standard. Dr. Julius Moya, before he retired, I visited him at the National Treasury in Kenya, in Nairobi, and he told me, if you want to, actually he was very emotional, and I can repeat what he said. He said, I know we Africans sometimes we tend instead of cooperating, we want to compete. But I'm an old man, and I'm going into retirement in the next 2 weeks. That was September of last year. He said, but young man, he called me a young man. Let me tell you, you Ugandans, if you want to grow your export trade, if you want to compete favorably, if you want to improve your competitiveness, do special economic zones and do them big. That's what he told me. He told me the standard government projects for special economic zones in Kenya, the size is 5,000 acres. 5,000 acres. We saw this in Tatu, which is a private special economic zone. We saw this in Konza, in Machakos, Makueni, Kajiado area, as we move towards Mombasa. That's where he comes from. Yeah. You know, these guys have turned a semi-arid. When you go to Konza, semi-arid. But they are creating the Silicon Savannah, a $1 trillion city at PPP on population. And I always remind Ugandans that we signed on the protocol of the Customs Union, which is part of the regional integration process that was ushered in by the Treaty for the Establishment of the East African Community. We are Customs Union, we are common market. And you know what that means. Ladies and gentlemen, this being the first, we are going to scale up. We are going to scale up. We have got land which is about maybe 10 kilometers away, but there is water in between. You need about 15 minutes cross. We'll be building there a facility which is 20 times bigger than this. And we think that that will be done in the next. We also have 11,000 acres. 11,000 acres of land in central Uganda, in a place called Nakaseke. These are 18 square miles. So now I think we are catching up with Kenya and faster. Kenya, the biggest, is 7.8 square miles. So we are moving to 18 square miles. And here we want to do a multimodal public special economic zone, where we shall have export processing zones, we can have ICT parks for innovation, science and technology. We can have, again, business outsourcing. Those are also exports by them. BPO are exports. Tourism are exports. Agricultural zones. Somebody, Mr. Mahmoud was talking about beef. Yes, we plan to have at least 5 square miles dedicated to beef production in this special economic zone. And so we have started small, but we are growing. Globally, have got two types of capital. We've got predatory capital, we've got patient capital. Predatory capital is what usually comes to Africa because we lack these transnational extraterritorial spaces which have laws, regulations, and tax regimes that are recognized globally. Free zones brings that to Africa. Uganda Free Zones Authority is a member of the World Free Zones Organization. We are members of the Global Alliance of Special Economic Zones. We are also members of the Africa Economic Area. So from these organizations. But Chairman, let me say this, and I want to say it. There's one international association where Uganda is not a member, but Kenya is a member, and this is the ICT sector. We are not members of the International Association of Science and Engineers. The reason is we do not have them. We haven't created them. But these are big. Free zones provide infrastructure and provide regulation. Those are the key two things that free zones provide: infrastructure and regulation. And also benefits of agglomeration, clustering, and collocation. As Uganda Free Zones Authority, we are determined to act and turn Uganda's potential into kinetic. We think about export growth model. There's something that we are creating, Chairman. Export growth model. What is Uganda's export growth model? Have we thought about it? Have we documented it? We intend in the next few weeks to document Uganda's export growth model. I know we have PPA, but do we have a model for export growth? That is documented, read, and well understood by all players. And we look forward to working and partnering with PACEID to document this export growth model for Uganda. We will do it, we'll bring it to life through regulation and through brick and mortar projects, as well as other interventions. This is testimony to that. Some of the critical elements that we are thinking about in our export growth model, I'll talk about 4 or 5. It's in the product area, because we have also got the services area, like education. Education can be an export. Tourism is an export. But on the product side, we are looking at production, and we are lucky that the government is already enhancing that capacity among Uganda through different programs like PDM, Emioga, and the others. The second key critical factor is value addition, processing and manufacturing. Now, if we want to go to the global market and be competitive, we do this in the free zones because of the exemption from all import duties and taxes that would otherwise be applicable on importation and exportation of goods and services. Quality assurance certification, very, very important for us. Packaging and branding. Mr. Chairman, you remember we have spoken about packaging, and I have said it, I've mentioned it to you, that whatever comes to a free zone does not pay tax. Import duties. Because it's a free zone, free of import duties and taxes. The idea is to help the manufacturers, the processors, the entrepreneurs be competitive when they go sell out in the global market. Because in the global market, we compete on 2 things. We compete on price and we compete on quality. So by government incentivizing the production on the customer side, we are helping our producers compete on price. Because your cost of production ultimately informs your pricing policy when you go to the market. Market entry and market presence. I'm happy PACEID is already doing this, Chairman, and be able to support you even more on the market entry and market presence aspect. Yes, sometimes I get concerned when I see us talking about market access. Market access is a boardroom affair where we sit with the government from Serbia or government from Turkey and we agree, quota-free and duty-free access. And then you tick off the box. But your goods are not yet there. So you need to know, what do you need in that market? And then you work backwards to ensure that you meet the requirements. Let me just briefly talk about the legal regulatory framework for free zones. Free zones in Uganda are anchored in the Treaty for the Establishment of the ESC, that's Article 75 and 76 of the treaty, but also in the Customs Union. A whole 4 articles are dedicated to special economic zones, free zones in Uganda and other attendant regulations. Under the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement, Comprehensive Protocol on Trade in Goods, Article 23, specially provides for special economic zones as special purpose vehicles to enhance intra-Africa trade. And the rules of origin that are being developed right now under the Africa Continental Free Trade Area, where we talk about preferential treatment of these goods in the market, whole obtained or partial obtained, are anchored on this provision of special economic zones under the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. Some people ask us, how are we planning to apply this to the private sector, this facility to the private sector? I mentioned, Chairman, that as government, we will provide this facility for use by the private sector to enhance the growth in Uganda's exports at less than market rates when it comes to charges. So if the private sector is charging 15 at this airport, I know Mr. Mahmoud is going to develop one. If you are going to charge 15, I think that's the going rate per square meter at the airport. Am I correct? About 15, will 12. Okay. If the private sector is charging 12, we'll charge 3 less or 5 less. As I conclude, in the next 14 days, the minister responsible for finance in Uganda is going to gazette this area as a free zone. Once it is gazetted as a free zone, in terms of customs management, it will be international territory, not be Uganda territory. And that means that whatever is here and is going out of the country will be duty-free. Whatever is coming in here will be an export. Meaning that if you're producing fruits or vegetables from Kayunga or Bamunani, Kaimluero or wherever, the moment that product enters this free zone, it is recorded as an export. Because it does not go back. There's no valve that moves it backwards. It continues to the international market. Thank you very much for listening to me. Once again, Chairman and the PACEID team and our visitors, we welcome you.
Our thought process is so it takes a journey of 8,000 kilometers, if you put each step at 1,000, to take a product from the farm to the final consumer. So you have an aggregator, you have a transporter, you have a distributor, you have a shipper, you have a salesperson. And at each stage, there's a lot of trouble, whether it's standard or infrastructure or pricing. So we thought this work should move away from Thai people to the districts, to the producers. Where are we going to aggregate what we sell? So we recently appointed Thomas Kategere. You can stand. Thomas is a former LC5 chairman of Kamuli, understands the politics and society, and he will be leading this conversation with farmers and cooperators. I have Matthew Bagonza, who is our head of admin. Please stand up. Have I forgotten anyone? Where is Maria? Maria on standards and compliance. Alan follows up on all our projects, especially the President's directives. aerodromes, this or the other so. And then we have the media team. So it's Victor, Mugasa, and Kahewa. It's just the two of you. And Bwayo. I have a very special friend, Ambassador Kiema Kilonzo, who is a former ambassador of Kenya to Uganda, but who I work closely to deal with regional diplomatic trade issues that we have. And he will be making some short remarks and introducing the team from Compact that he came with, who I want us to listen intently and see how do we connect Mombasa and Entebbe so that Mombasa is done here. How do we reverse engineer the process of exports the way we've been handling imports? I'll introduce Bratislav, who is doing a lot of good work in Southeastern Europe and wants to do some work here immediately if we are ready. And so therefore I brought here a team that I want to take to the president and say, we are ready to do some work and also take products of the market working with UFSA. So whatever UFSA issues, let's fix them very quickly and ensure that we don't stop this momentum. Now, I also thank you. I studied economics. When someone starts with economics with Rosto, you touch my sensibilities. Huh? So classical economics teaches us that there are three questions anyone who wants to help a country should ask. What's the role of government? Government should not just enforce, because government enforces contracts. That's the traditional role of government. Government can regulate or deregulate. Now, we know how to do a bit of that in Uganda. Stop this, stop what works. But what we don't know, we'll figure out. This is no strategic thinking about 20 years from now, 30 years from now. The other role of government is give me a base on which to stand on, which is infrastructure, on which I can lower my cost of production. That is the traditional classical economics role of government. I don't have time, I could take ages on each one of them. Second question you ask yourself, what's the role of an individual? What does an individual do? Because you are not just a non-participant on a train. One, you consume. So we are now consuming $10.5 billion. We have moved in 7 years, imagine, from 7 billion to 10.5. Are we just passive consumers? Shouldn't we ask questions? What are we consuming? Where is it from? Why can't we produce part of this? Why are we net consumers of other people's efforts? So that the role of an individual is you consume. The other one is you build. You build things. You are not just eating, consuming, you build. You build enterprises. That's why we pursue exports by companies. That's why tomorrow we have 100 Algerians of different stripes and category, and we have a catalog. And we're telling them we too can produce and build. You buy from us, you sell to us. The third role an individual does is innovate. If you combine those three with the three roles of government, then the third question classical economists taught us is you ask, what is the thing called the market? The market is an animal like a house. You construct it. There's no such a thing as free market economy. That's what they tell you, but the actual interventions that grow the free market economy mean that you construct the market, you study it very well, you do R&D. That's what we are doing as PACEID. So therefore, I digress just to agree with you on the role of government. But it's not just government alone, it is those three that I have mentioned. If you have individuals aware of what to do, government institutions working, certainly now we can face the markets in a very organized manner. Markets are trade is two-way. So for me, when I look at China, India, and Japan, those three countries imported 32% of everything we consume. When I add Middle East, it is 38, almost 40%. What am I selling to India? Don't know. $1.2 billion they sell to me, I sell them 80. So if I don't have people who are innovative, if I don't have people building enterprises, these facilities will not make a lot of sense. They'll be converted into storage facilities for imports. That's not what we want. We want exports. Huh? So we are here to achieve two things very quickly, and I sit. Huh? First is that we want to put some processing capability here. We want to roast and grind ready-to-drink coffee from here, so that if I vacuum pack it, whether it's capsules, so Bratislav, you just shed some light on that, whether it is a kilo like what we see there, can we do some roasting and loading from an Entebbe Free Zone? But can I also assemble some machines like the ones where we got this coffee from? Because the reason you make 8 million bags a year and only process 1,500 tons really is because Ugandans are not making their strategic resource. So we grow it, we give it to someone, they make fantastic coffee out of it. Every time I travel, anybody asks, where does the good coffee come from? Italy. Bratislav will tell you. The hotel I stayed in, I asked the waitress, where is this coffee from? Without blinking an eye, Bologna. I said, no, where's Bologna? Bologna is in Italy. That's where the best coffee comes from. So how do I change the basic consumer in those countries to know that Bologna does not grow coffee? I have to grow, process, and pack it here. So we want to do some work there, but also promote domestic consumption by assembling these machines. But we also know that there is packaging that is meant for Europe. And I don't have to waste your time going through these. So packaging troubles are known here. How do we pack? How do we package fruits and veg? And how do we pack them? What are those pallets like? What's the size of the cardboard box? How is it branded and marked? How is it received in these markets? So we want to do some production of that here, so that we have a 360 degree on how you approach a product. Bring it in, it's sorted, it's roasted or processed, it's packed, it's taken outside. So this is one reason why we are here, and why Bratislav and Zoran are in the country. This is one leg. The second leg why we are here and we want to resolve before we move is this team called Compact. Now, we could have picked many clearing and forwarding agents. I didn't know them until just last week. So the question I asked them is, how do we reverse this process? So here they have the port of Mombasa, goods are delivered. Cargo is delivered. That's what we know. Because here we say, container and kubo. We are very proud of saying that. Huh? Because I keep telling people that exports have zero language in Uganda. You don't hear people speak about exporting. Eh? If you speak to Chinese and you say, I'm in the business of clearing and forwarding, they don't do much of that. They produce things and someone takes them. But clearing and forwarding in Uganda is big business. Why? Because we're an importing country only. We are happy to say, I own a clearing and forwarding. Why don't you own a roastery producing 1 ton a year? Just 1 ton. It also makes sense. So reverse this process. Cargo delivered, you can see then the cargo is railed to the inland container depot. Cargo is shunted from ICDN. There is break bulk. Goods are cleared to the local market. Now, I want us to start here. Make sure that goods are gathered in one place, at a particular place, collected for local market. Goods are aggregated or processed. Goods are shunted or packed. Goods are delivered in Mombasa. but we are still here at Entebbe. We are doing everything here, but all the paperwork, all the processes, we've removed many levels where value is inverted, and we create value and compact it at source and at Mombasa. So I can desegregate food for Serbia, coffee for Italy, whatever it is here. So that when a container leaves, that's why they were asking you about container yard and these things. So therefore, before we close this session, I want to know, can we reverse engineer this process? The way we are used to importing now is the way we take things outside. So I just want to stop here.